Hey, it's Colleen with Rope and Resellers, and I'm here for a What's It Worth video. Today I'm going to be talking about yarn because it's something that we see a lot in Goodwill and thrift stores and estate sales, and I have always been sort of hesitant to pick it up. I have sold it on occasion. I know enough just to get me into trouble, so I have done okay. I've also done not okay. So you have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to spend up because there's not a lot of profit margin in there. But let's go over to the computer and take a look and see what we can find out. Full disclosure, I am no expert on yarn. I have sold yarn in the past on eBay. I never think of it as a huge moneymaker, but it could be a great pipeline for you if you come across it at an estate sale and you're wondering whether to buy yarn or not. So here's my first example of leftover yarn, because a lot of times you'll be able to buy a giant bag at an estate sale that's half-used yarn they don't know what to do with. Look, these guys, a huge lot. I'm not exactly sure how much, but it got bidded up to $37. So I think that you could probably do that. Vintage yarn sells okay, but you have to be really careful that it isn't musty if it's wool. So I started looking at just skeins, and I just wanted to explain some of the verbiage. So these are skeins, and they are just what a bundle of yarn is with the paper wrapped around it, or some sort of tie. So this is a boutique brand. That's really what you're looking for, is the new yarn, because people are trying to make blankets and stuff like that, baby blankets and sweaters, things like that. So I'll show you specifically what you might be looking for. So this is Red Heart, which is a brand, and I will, this is what I come across mostly because it was super popular, and it still is. The Red Heart brand, I do believe this brand is sold in Michael's. I'm not 100% sure on that. Doodle Pump, like thick and thin yarn. But again, it's Red Heart brand. People love them. If you can lot them up, if you can get them cheap enough. I mean, if you paid $10 for this and you made $70, that's okay, right? So it depends on how much you can get it for. Don't pay up for yarn unless you really know what you're doing, which I don't think, unless you are a knitter, you're going to really know what you're doing. So here's, I've looked up wool yarn, which is something that you are looking for. Silk wool blend does really well. These are higher end. You're probably not going to find these for the most part, but wool is worth more than acrylic, so I just wanted to point that out. And here is a brand that is doing really well, Juniper Moon, and it says Susan Gibbs, who was a TV personality or something, obviously was into knitting and started a brand. And so when you look up Juniper Moon, her stuff resells really well, because obviously people have bought a certain number of skeins and they can't finish their project, or they really like the wool, so 10 skeins is going for $100. Now she sells her yarn, it looks like it's about in the $15 to $20 range. So you're not going to be able to buy it new and flip it, but if you see it and you run across it, there's this cute little tag. And my guess is, I don't know what the distribution is like, and people buy stuff online anymore, so it doesn't really even matter, but she's based out of Virginia. That was just an example of a boutique brand that is fairly collectible. So the other type of yarn you might be looking for is alpaca yarn. So this is just a distributor online. Peruvian Highland wool and fine alpaca. Those are words that you're looking for when you're looking at yarn. They sell, if you buy 1 to 4, they're $21.28. And here's what alpaca yarn is selling for on eBay. If you can find it, again, if you can find it cheap enough and you see some alpaca skeins, then you know that you can make some money on alpaca yarn. Okay, looking at trends here in 2019, chunky yarn. This is hard to tell, but this gives you a little more perspective how big this is. You probably aren't going to find this in a thrift store, but you might, or an estate sale. This is so on trend. But if you come across it inexpensively, 4 of these, $44. So if you can get them for a couple bucks. But I just wanted to point out that this is a trend right now. Arm knitting, it's a thing. Trust me. You can look in Pottery Barn and stuff like that, and this super thick chunky yarn is desirable. And the last thing I want to talk about that you might come across, this is going back to my what's it worth last week. I didn't mention latch hook rugs because for the most part they sell for a little bit more money in thrift stores, and they really don't bring you that much return on investment. But if you can find a big bag, a lot of times they don't know what to do because at the end of their latch hook rug project, they have all these little bundles of latch hook rug. So if you see these short little pieces, that's what those are. Those are latch hooking. Here's an example of what a latch hook canvas looks like. If you can find the yarn in enough quantity, then sometimes people will make their own latch hook rugs. The important thing on this is to look for wool again. Sometimes acrylic does okay. It's not going to sell as well. The wool will do all right. So that's it for looking at yarn. If you guys, I am no expert, so if you guys want to leave comments down below, certain brands, but basically I've given you a few things to look out for yarn. Just don't spend a lot of money and hopefully you can make some. So a lot of different variety. I realized pretty quickly doing the research for this video that I was going down a rabbit hole and that there is a lot to yarn, and there are boutique brands and all kinds of names, that vocabulary that you should probably research. Worsted is the most common. That's a medium weight knit. There's chunky or bulky. There's lots of keywords that you need to look up when you're listing your yarn. I would say the best bet is to just buy large bags of yarn at estate sales for $5, and you probably can't go wrong. You're gonna make 25 bucks on it. The sell-through rate is phenomenal on yarn. I didn't point that out on the computer. It's about a 50% sell-through rate. So every 90 days, half of what is listed is getting sold. So that's pretty good. I mean, we always shoot for 100% sell-through rate, but all in all, it probably will not be sitting around for a super long time if you're careful about what you buy. So with that, I want to thank you guys. If you guys want to leave any comments down below, ideas for what to do in the future. I tend to lean towards listing things that are vintage, so I'll go out and hunt something in the thrift stores this week and hopefully come up with a what's it worth next week on something vintage that I find. Thanks for watching.